Here's a weather outlook for Southeast Alaska from the National Weather Service in Juneau, Alaska. Hello everyone, Meteorologist Grant Smith here with the National Weather Service here in Juneau, joined with Spencer Fielding. You've been working dayside. I'm coming in the evening. It's about Sunday afternoon, little after 2:30 is this recording. And we've got some active weather.
Yes, we do.
On the way, yes. So last week I was on the swing shift, the evening shift anyway, and in the long range, that 7, 8, 9 day range, we were seeing this front coming through, pushing storm force winds. But when it's 8 days out, 9 days out, you're like, okay, it's a first draft.
Yeah.
But now we're multiple days in. You've been looking at the stuff all day. What are you seeing?
So that storm force front you guys were talking about,
yeah,
it looks like it's still going to come hitting us.
Okay, so the data's still showing storm front. So
yep, the forecast models are still bringing it in. They still want to do it and have a lot more agreements of, hey, it's looking like it's a very good possibility.
Okay, so we got the 5 day here that you put together. Looks like Wednesday into Thursday is kind of your time frame of what you're looking at.
Yeah, so really, we have a really low period Monday into Tuesday. Wednesday, we start seeing things picking up, and Wednesday night, really into the evening and going to overnight hours, we'll start seeing those impacts, especially along the outer coast and like across the waters, when this front really starts to come across the area. And then really, it'll hit the outer coast first, and then more of the inner channels Thursday morning, and that's when some of the inner channels will see their impacts. So that'll be something that have to be watched for timing concerns, because there's still some variability in timing. Mm-hmm. But it's looking like this front definitely could be pretty significant for the area. It could be bringing us some 50-knot winds across the outer coast.
Okay, so that's what you're thinking when it comes in from the Gulf. So Wednesday, Thursday, front coming in from the west. Let's kind of break this down. Let's talk about the Gulf waters as the front moves through. You said 50 knots. Mm-hmm. It's kind of your sustained minimum, as your sustained like kind of boundary. What's your low end? What's all the data showing? 90% chance of happening. What's your low end? What you've been seeing today?
Right now, low end's looking like it's going to be at least 35, maybe getting up to 40 knots.
Okay,
sustained solid system.
So solid 35 knots minimum as the front comes through for the Gulf waters on the offshore. What's the high end worst case scenario that you've been seeing in the data today?
Worst case scenario, we could be flirting with the idea of getting close to hurricane force, so getting over those 60 knot winds. But right now, that's not looking very likely. It's still not consistent enough that we would feel comfortable putting it in there. But storm force, they're looking very likely for a lot of areas, especially for over the water.
Okay, so high end, worst case scenario, 60 to 65. Low end is 35, but where you're most comfortable with, you're pushing that 50 knot winds, yeah. Sustained winds. Okay, excellent. And then so the seas, what are the seas going to do?
Seas are going to respond very significantly with this wind because it's going to have some time to build seas. So we're looking at seas really getting up, and before the front even, starting to get up into that 12 to 17 foot range, which is going to be very impactful for any mariners out there, especially with those with smaller vessels. And then really as that front starts to come through, we're talking possibly even up to 25 foot seas.
Okay, so 12, 17 before the front hits, maximum 25 feet wind or foot seas when the front passes through. And then afterward, probably settling back down to 12 to 17.
Yeah, it's still kind of
keep going down as we go throughout the days.
Yeah, and it'll start to continue to trend down. But right after that front comes through, it's still going to be very active, and you're going to have very high seas.
Okay, so pretty impactful marine impacts in the Gulf, but as the front comes in, it's going to hit the inner channels. How are the inner channels going to respond? As we're those little inner channels that you're thinking.
So inner channels are going to be an interesting case. So
they always are.
Yes, the northern inner channels likely. Well, I would say northern. So Lincoln Island, Glacier Bay, likely won't respond as much. Then places like Cross Sound, southern part of Chatham, Clarence, even Sumner and Frederick, they're likely going to respond more to this front as it comes into the area, partly because of their orientation to the front.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, because with the exception of Clarence, you said all of the east-west channels. So you're probably going to see the bigger sustained winds.
Yeah.
And how high are you thinking for those?
So for a lot of those, we'll probably see 20 to 30 knots sustained for most of those, with the exception of some places like Clarence, where they're looking more like 35 because of the fact that they will be oriented perfectly with the winds to flow right into them.
Yeah, and they flow right into Dixon Entrance. We see that. So that's kind of a normal pattern. That's good to see that things are happening the way we would expect them. So 20 to 30 is what you're thinking. What's your low end, 90% confidence it's going to happen? What's that?
Low end, we're talking, I mean, for the northern half, you're talking 15, 20s. For the southern, you're looking at a lot more like 20 to 30, but there's a lot more confidence of seeing those gales, especially farther south.
Okay.
And also along the ocean entrances.
So bare minimum, what we would call a 90% confidence is at 15. That's going to be bare minimum. We're pretty sure that's going to happen. And then your next range that you're most comfortable with is at 20 to 30. What's the worst case for the areas not the south? Because the south, you're talking 35 knots. Mm-hmm. What about the rest of the area? What's the worst case scenario for those areas?
So worst case for most of those areas would be we start seeing some gales. So 35 knots, maybe a 30 to 35, maybe some localized 40s, but very, very localized. I mean, we're talking like Skull Islands, places like where it's so localized, it's almost...
Where all the wind can just funnel, all that energy funnels into a small area.
It's almost unrepresented everywhere else except that spot.
Okay, and so that's those areas. What about the south? Because you're comfortable with gales down there. What's the worst case scenario above gales for the south, like Clarence Strait and Sumner, Frederick?
Worst case scenario for them, we could see really a solid gale, like 40 to 45. And again, maybe if you're talking very localized, you can maybe see a local 50, but that's very, very localized. So, but 40 to 50 though, 40 to 45, that looks really consistent.
Okay, that's going to be the high end.
Yeah,
your worst case scenario. Okay, excellent. And then, so the seas in the inner channels, did you do any elevated wind or elevated seas in your forecast?
Yeah. So for the inner channels, obviously seas will come up with these, but the seas that are going to probably be the worst locations are going to be those either with the strongest winds or those also that are ocean entrances. So Cross Sound, Cape Decision area, down through there, Dixon Entrance. Those areas will probably see the worst seas, not only because of the winds, but we'll also see the seas coming in from the Gulf.
Yeah, so, and using this kind of pattern, 4 to 8 feet would be kind of just a baseline good starting point. Mm-hmm. So you're thinking higher than 4 to 8 in the ocean entrances.
Yeah, some of those ocean entrances could be getting into the teens and even high teens even. Okay. So anyone who is
all
trying
that energy just flows in, So
anyone trying to get out of those ocean entrances could have some issues with their vessels trying to make it through there, especially those of smaller.
Excellent. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of discussion here about the marine impacts from this forecast and what you're thinking. But I don't know about you, but I don't live in the marine waters. So what about the land areas? What are we seeing? How is this front in the middle of the week going to impact the land areas?
So right now, the land areas, the biggest impacts are going to be along the outer coast as well. And that is because that front is going to be so strong as it really bulldozes its way in here, and it kind of just brings all of its wind with it.
And as it goes in, it'll weaken, you're thinking?
And we're thinking as it crosses through the inner channels, it starts weakening. But really, the outer coast, like Baranof Island, Prince of Wales, Northeast Gulf Coast, all those areas really getting the worst wind.
Yeah, and so you thinking like high wind, like 60 plus mile per hour gusts, or are you thinking like not quite that high, or where were you thinking for?
So for most places, we're thinking like a strong wind. So, getting those 40 to not quite 60 mile an hour wind gusts. Prince of Wales, especially places favored like Heidelberg, and even Metlakatla, they could be seeing a lot worse winds where they're exposed and can get hit with the wind a lot more. Mm-hmm. They very possibly could reach higher wind criteria, so above that 58 miles per hour. Okay. So they're more concerned, and that's something that's going to have to be watched through the start of the week before the storm hits, is do we have everything there to hit that criteria?
So excellent. So 40 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts is kind of a safe bet, broad brush, but then you're isolating little, what I would call problem children that that usually are higher than everywhere else that could have higher than 60 mile per hour, or at least that hitting that 60 mile per hour wind gust criteria a little bit sooner. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And now this is probably going to be bringing some rain. So like heavy precipitation,
yeah,
you thinking?
So we are gonna see heavy precipitation, and it will bring us it will bring a soaking to us. It is tapping into some subtropical moisture. We are not too concerned about it right now, though, because the fact that our rivers are so low at the time, so they've had time to recover from all that heavy rain we had earlier in the fall. But also, another thing working in our favor is that our snow levels will be lower during this time, and we're expecting those roughly in the 3,000 to 4,000 feet, which will help take up some of that moisture, and it'll fall as snow, so it will delay how soon it gets into those river basins.
Okay, so high up, we're thinking, snow, and then lower areas, just heavy rain. Mm-hmm. Okay, but no concern of flooding at this time because rivers are already pretty low.
They're pretty low. I don't know about you, but I drove by the Mendenhall the other day, and it's really low.
Yeah, it is getting pretty low. So then I saw on the 5-day here, you got middle of the week, some activity, and then a break, and then more Friday into the weekend.
Yeah, so it looks like we'll have another system coming in for Friday into the weekend, but that's still got to be monitored. And obviously, we have our main system for Wednesday, Thursday that really is taking the show right now. So, and we'll have to discuss that second one later in the week.
All right, so for now, we'll just focus on Wednesday, Thursday, little break, but stay tuned. More is coming afterward. So, Well, excellent. Thanks for coming here, answering all my questions, helping me out with, letting people know what's potentially going to happen. So, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. I'm meteorologist Grant Smith here with Spencer Fielding. Have a good one.